Uh, 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 uh,
most when interacting with media, and it's Yaoi bitch. The top 10 ships are all male slash ships, with two Minecraft YouTubers being in a platonic ship category for some reason.
What?
I don't know them like that, so. We got Yaoi all towards the world.
Who?
Stranger Things Yaoi. Got Genshin Impact Yaoi. We got Call of Duty Yaoi. And of course, we gotta have some toxic anime Bakudeku Yaoi, alright? That's all there, whatever you want, we got it. Our first Yuri my ladies comes from Wednesday, sitting pretty at 11th place. And the first heterosexual ship for all my straight friends out there, between Hermione and Draco, sits very pretty at 12th place. Take a long, hard look, y'all. The people, they crave yaoi. And who are we? Call them rotten because of it. When I was being raised by the internet and I first encountered the word fujoshi and the connotation behind it, I immediately hated it and them. I disdained fujoshis and I adopted the mindset to ostracize them and distance myself away from them.
Nice, she was also transphobic
Girl,
at some
I
point.
was a fujoshi and apparently I still am. I was up at midnight writing Dean and Castiel fanfiction from Supernatural. You don't get bigger Fujo than that, okay? I had a lot of thoughts at this age, right? I hated pink because it was too girly of a color. I
It's
liked
a
the
manly color.
blue and tried to get into Pokemon and soccer because I was not like other girls, girl, okay? I avoided
can
boy
relate.
bands like the Plague because I thought that since a bunch of girls liked them, that they weren't that serious. And I liked real music instead. You know what? Secretly, I kind of liked some of the One Direction songs. And I thought,
Cringe.
in pastel form, I did not like Pokemon. And I was not good at soccer. So, who was I pretending for? This internal misogyny that I had at this young age was pretty much celebrated by the culture at the time because it was good not to be like other girls or to fall into the femininity trap. But, you know, as I got older, hi, my hair's pink, and also, what's wrong with other girls? This mindset is one of the many that I believe fuels the hate for fujoshis. At the end of the day, it's overgeneralizing an entire group of women and shaming them for what they consume. There are absolutely critiques that we can have for the genre itself, but not every single woman who reads yaoi is running around with a yaoi paddle, alright? It just feels like a really easy scapegoat in order to just shame women. Policing what a woman can or cannot do based on her identity as a woman is straight up just textbook misogyny. I am so sorry. You are literally falling into the trap that those men created when they coined the word fujoshi in order to shame women out of their nerdy otaku spaces. That is just never a practice we should get used to or accustomed to. And honestly, it just kind of gets worse from here. Sam Averine
Oh my
wrote an
God.
incredible article called The Influence of Transphobia, Homonationalism, and Anti-Asian Prejudice, Anti-BL Attitudes in English-Speaking Fandoms, which blows the door wide open on these anti-fujoshi practices online and their really dark pasts. Averine also compiled an entire database chock full of examples of anti-BL and anti-fujoshi discourse across the internet over the
Yep,
course
they still
of
suck.
years. And this website, of course, is linked in the description down below. Fair warning to anyone planning to read Averine's article, which I highly recommend. It's an amazing piece. There's a lot of examples of homophobic, transphobic, and racism. It's hard to read, so I do caution anybody who goes to read these sources, but again, I highly recommend it if you're able to. Great work. Let's begin talking about Averine's findings. I hope I'm saying Averine's correctly. I apologize in advance. Averine examines the behavior that anti-fujoshis exhibit online, which are sometimes violent and racist in their discussions over BL and what is considered good queer representation. It is a common belief that any work that is created as a BL, which their definition means any Japanese BL, must thus be tainted and only Fish's content, and the only good queer content is that from the West. Heartstopper, the popular gay love story between boys that went on to be adapted by Netflix is often cited as a better gay love story than anything that BL can produce.
No way.
Honey, no. Heartstopper doesn't fall under the category of a BL or a yaoi. It's a queer coming-of-age love story that deals with identity in relation to oneself and to others. It's a healthy depiction of queerness and queer joy. So, no. Not a BL or a yaoi. Just for the record, Heartstopper is a BL, okay? It's a boy's love story. It's the very essence, the genre of BL. The only real difference is that Heartstopper was written by a British author. So are you saying that every BL that exists that is made by a Japanese person is bad then? I have a feeling that's not what you want to say. BL itself is a genre. Some stories in that genre suck. Others don't. That's kind of just how every genre is. It's just a whole world. Saying you hate BL is kind of like saying you hate action and adventure. You know what? Sure, some action flicks objectify women like nuts, okay? I can't seem to watch a Fast and Furious movie without seeing some model's butt on my screen every 2 seconds, okay? That doesn't mean I'm going to go on and hate the entire action and adventure genre because of a theme that is present in some of the works. Because you know what? John Wick will not stand for this slander, neither will Jurassic Park or Suicide Squad. The Meg is cinema, alright? Whether you like it or not. Okay, the bit may have gone too far, but you get the point. Let me know any other action movies you guys like, because I love a good action flick. I do. Aberime in the article says, quote, gay men's pornography was rarely, if ever, brought up or compared to BL, and at times it even appeared as if anti-BL critics were arguing that heterosexual women, i.e. fujoshi, were the only people portraying queer male characters in an explicit manner. In short, for any anti-BL homo-nationalists, what is deemed harmful in Asian BL becomes representative of all BL, and what is deemed good or healthy in Western queer narratives centering gay men become representative of all Western narratives centering gay men. Aberime goes on to state how the author of Heartstopper themselves had renounced BL as a whole, and yet stated how several BLs, such as Given and the mangaka BL writer Hayakawa Nojiko, were direct inspirations for Heartstopper's creation. Aberime states, Osman, Heartstopper's author, was also documented on a separate occasion stating that yaoi and BL are riddled with very nasty toxic tropes because they're genres that tend to fetishize and erotize queer men in a really bad way. At the time of these comments, Osman drew distinctions as to what they believed made their work distinct from BL, noting realism and complex character that were respectful and not explicit. As for the BL works that inspired them, Osman labeled those works MLM manga and considered them an exception to the majority of BL. So you can't say all BL is bad, but not the few that I like, because those aren't BL, those are MLM. You can't just rewrite the genre like that based on your qualifications and what you deem is worthy or not. It's very selective and narrow-minded and a little racist. It gets worse with Aberime's findings, unfortunately.
I'm gonna switch my main party.
A lot of the hot ticket phrases that people like to use online and how they stem from transphobic origins. Yo, it's E as an editor in a much higher quality resolution. Don't ask me. Do not ask me why. Okay, don't ask. I'm
keeping the frontliners, it's the backliners I want to change.
I forgot to record this in the script. I'm going to be showing some examples and some screenshots of users utilizing some pretty nasty transphobic language. It's not super extreme, but it's enough to make me sad.
It is pink.
So I wanted to give you guys a proper warning. You could skip to this timestamp right here if you want to skip, or you can just mute for a little bit, and then, I don't know, I might come back and be like, hey. Alright, that's all. See ya. The phrase most often used, as I mentioned earlier, when shaming Fujoshi and BL creatives is that they are encouraging gay men, and that every single Fujoshi is a straight woman with evil motives. First of all, a lot of the people consuming BL and yaoi are queer people, which I'll get into shortly, so it seems like an act of friendly fire more often than not. But second, the accusation of rising actually originates from gender-critical circles online. Gender criticals are transphobic communities that are hell-bent on trying to shame and bring awareness to the sickness of transgenderism. When on the topic of Fujoshi, gender criticals would cite that gay trans men were all actually just heterosexual women who read too much BL and who were just artists hoping to be able to be the yaoi men in their manga and use it as a way to get with gay guys. The hot token phrase of advertising was the go-to argument for gender criticals when directly attacking trans men who liked BL. Quote, gender criticals refer to trans men, and by extension fujoshi, as homophobic, due to their belief that trans men are heterosexual women forcing their way into authentic, i.e. cisgender, gay male spaces. Over time, gender criticals attached negative emotional language to fujoshi, BL, and other related terms, which resulted in evaluated conditioning. Such conditioning has been used to demonize LGBTQ+ people for decades in the US and elsewhere. Evaluated conditioning is very much prejudiced people attaching very intense, strong, worded emotions to their target in order for people to be on their side. A lot of gender criticals at this time would go undercover into pro-trans spaces and try to pass off as being pro-trans, and would in time start to slowly condition everyone in those spaces to use these hot token phrases that would start to align with their own prejudiced beliefs. These people, often coined crypto turfs because they were hidden, so crypto, wanted the divide that is now present in these LGBTQ+ spaces. They wanted the members to hate each other, to start throwing around accusations and overgeneralizations, to further alienate and ostracize members of our own community, and it has worked. Look at us, the current state of the internet these days. They got us at each other's throats, dude, monitoring and policing what each other can consume, and claiming that if one woman reads a yaoi, she is simultaneously taking the rights away from queer men, which is just a very wild and extremist point of view. We have to be careful when picking up and adopting these charged phrases. We don't know who coined them, and we don't know how much hurt they can truly cause. These points are still bleeding into this argument that makes its rounds on the internet every so often, with these tweets here having blown up around the same time as writing this video. It's the debate of why are yaoi ships more popular? And it seems to always end up in people saying that women and male fans just hate women characters and they don't find as much value in female characters as they do male characters, which I totally agree to an extent. Internal misogyny is a bitch, dude. I find myself trying to actively combat some of the internalized misogyny that I have in my own brain here. But I don't think it's very productive to just like start yelling at women for this thing that we're all being afflicted by, and also trying to tell them how to enjoy fictional characters properly. I don't think that's very productive. It's definitely something to talk about for sure, but getting genuinely mad that the top ships on AO3 are all gay yaoi ships, it's just not gonna get anyone anywhere. And also, to say hello to the elephant in the room, women like men. Women are going to be attracted to a lot of male characters because women are attracted to men. And it doesn't make anyone a better person for liking yuri ships or for liking female characters more. It's not a contest, okay? It's just a hobby. I wanted to put my finger to a pulse, and not the pulse, because I don't think that's humanly possible, but I asked the amazing Ratsura community, hi guys, here on YouTube and on Twitter, by asking them to fill out this Google form with these questions, asking how fujoshis are viewed in their opinion, why they are, and what the draw of BL is to them as a person. And holy mackerel, dude, you guys did not play. We got 467 responses on the Google form alone, which is not even including the DMs I got on Twitter and Instagram. So I wanted to say first, thank you to everyone who participated. I know I can't say thank you personally to everybody, so consider this a personal thank you. So after going through them all, here are some of the conclusions that I made. A lot of the straight women that filled out the form would acknowledge how fujoshis are seen and viewed online as these obnoxious homophobic creeps, but that they themselves just liked a good romance. Every single answer I got from a straight woman was very respectful and just normal. One straight woman from South Africa wrote, "What I love about BL stories is how it's usually a story of self-discovery from one character or both, about their purpose, sexuality, life in general. Like the story isn't just centered around the romance. A lot of BL stories are beautifully written and filmed. I also love the uncertainty and almost forbidden love aspect that some stories display. The uncertainty from the character or characters." Another straight woman from Ireland wrote, "Well, as a female, I'd like to think it's okay for women women to consume BL. If people find it weird, then I'd really like to understand why. It's not just BL content that I consume, but shouldn't it be a good thing to get a wider audience to enjoy queer media? This could stop the barrier of having only straight ships in big brand movies if more people get into it, and understand that it's not a big deal and that non-straight couples exist and deserve to be seen and represented. I could understand if people find it weird, if they fetishize it and become obsessed, but as someone who just enjoys reading about some guys falling in love, like any other romance novels that exist, I can't see why it's a big deal. Every single straight woman that answered my questions were just normal people and just loved a good romance story. And when I asked them if they thought that BL was good queer representation, they either said, I'm not queer, so I don't think I have the authority to answer that question, or they would say, yeah, some stories definitely are, some stories aren't. A lot of the Google form answers came from queer people themselves. I'd like to say that a lot of people who like BL or yaoi are queer themselves, but I have to acknowledge that I'm pulling from a very queer viewer base. I know a lot of my viewers are queer themselves, so it's not fair to me to say, based on my results, this proves that there are more queer people consuming yaoi than straight people, but every single person I know that reads BL or yaoi is gay as hell, so do with that what you will. The general consensus from my queer people would also acknowledge the infamous image of the fujoshi, but a common phrase that I ran into a lot is, as long as they aren't being weird in real life, then I don't care. A respondee from Vietnam said, I feel it has always been some misogynistic undertone to the online treatments of those whose I don't think it's talked about enough how the treatment of fujoshi is linked to the misogyny so present in queer circles, especially the ones predominantly occupied by gay men. There's a pretty common consensus that fujoshis only view gay men as sexual objects, and the act of consuming media depicting gay relationships is fujoshis just fetishized. While now I can see how wrong it is, I still remember how when I first engaged in online circles about queer media, I was surrounded by people saying that fujoshis are just a bunch of horny teenage girls watching hot men kissing for mere arousal and not actually doing anything to support queer rights movements, and also bullying queer men online who don't fit into their expectations of how gay men should act or look like. I was so affected by such opinions that I channeled all of my anger and frustration I had as a gay boy who recently came out onto fujoshis too. Even though I did see instances in which fujoshis did some nasty things and understood where those gay men come from, I think the backlash fujoshis usually received was mostly just purely hate and bullying, with no room for discourse or education at all. A non-binary arrow wrote, fujoshi seem to be very hated online in Western spaces in my experience. Some of it is usually justified because some of them are really, really weird, which is why I used to be very anti-fujoshi since I did know gay men who found it really disturbing. But then I feel like not everyone who calls themselves a fujoshi necessarily criticizes MLM, especially in my area. Fujoshis just are people who like BL on the Asian side of the internet, I feel like. They later say that BL to them was one of their introductions to queerness, and it helped make them realize that they were not straight. A gay man from the US admitted that from his exposure to BL and yaoi, he had, quote, only seen more fetishized roles from the BL pair. He then went on to list Western examples like Jacob Hill from Elementary, Heartstopper, and Elliot Page from the Umbrella Academy as being better queer representation. Another case of seeing Western rep as inherently better than Asian BL, which I don't think this respondee intentionally meant to say, but it does showcase an underlying thought process that is in a lot of people's minds. A bisexual trans man from the US stated how he heavily disliked them, fujoshis, due to personal reasons. Most of them are MLM fetishizers, and I don't like people fetishizing my identity. But went on to continue that he wasn't too keen on women consuming or creating BL due to meeting some women who made him uncomfortable in the past. But, quote, I know some women simply respect and want to consume queer content. As long as they are respecting MLM identity, not letting it completely take over their media consumption, it's cool to me. A male at birth, bisexual, genderqueer from Puerto Rico said, fujoshis are both idolized and heavily criticized in fandom, since young women always get shat on. At the same time, they drive fandom like headless horsemen, so we have to give them some respect. A gay man from East Asia also shared how he was negatively affected by some of the BL and yaoi that he read while growing up. He felt like he didn't fit into the stereotypes these fictional pieces seemed to put him into. Quote, it made me feel insecure with how I acted due to how I saw feminine men being treated in BL. The aggression, the lack of consent in yaoi, all those made me feel so uncomfortable within myself. It grew in me the insecurity that perhaps everything everyone ever told me about being gay as a sin was right. Now that I'm older, I could easily maneuver around the burnt edges of BL, aka the bad stuff, and understand how BL isn't accurate reflections of gay relationships, and I can appreciate BL for what it is now, rather than search into it.
Why?
I try to pick as many diverging opinions as I can from this huge list of respondees. Again, thank you. To try to give you a good idea of a lot of different people's thoughts. A lot acknowledged how the Fujoshi, a capital F, was seen, while also acknowledging the complexity of the issue. Many said, as long as they aren't weird, then I'm fine. And those that have actually been affected by this scary figure out in the wild can also accept that not everybody is like that. The existence of BL was also able to show a lot of queer people the existence of other queer people, and it gave them a chance to become more comfortable within themselves and their sexuality. Meanwhile, some stories are chock full of toxic stereotypes that could be detrimental to a gay man's image as he's growing up into his identity. We can absolutely critique some works for handling subject matter in a bad way, while also praising good ones for being good works. Something as complex as BL and the Fujoshi can be gray. It can have its extremes and its plateaus, just like everything. It, again, is not a black and white issue. BL shouldn't be this nasty, tainted word. It's just another genre that exists today. And that's okay. Out of all of these responses, I did not get one that was like this. Not one encapsulated the Fujoshi with a capital F. This image of the Fujoshi seems more akin to the Babadook in modern internet spaces than a regular occurrence. I just do not think that the Fujodook is as prevalent as everyone is trying to make it out to be. Yes, there are some weirdos online that take liking BL way too far, with a yaoi paddle in one hand and homophobia in the other. But dare I say, isn't that the case with everything? Yes, some BL yaoi works can be problematic, but that doesn't mean every single one is, because it's a pretty huge genre that covers a lot of stories. Is every single woman who reads yaoi or BL some kind of monstrous writer? No, we should not be growing accustomed to these extremes. This is overgeneralization. Point blank. That seems to be more rooted in misogyny and racism and even transphobia than it being an actual genuine cry for LGBTQIA+ rights. The ending message.
Holy shit, the acronym just keeps getting longer for us.
Is to discourage you from overgeneralizing, to thinking in these black and white extremes. We shouldn't get into the habit of policing what women can or cannot consume based on their identity as women. Some people are weird, some people aren't. You just have to have your own mind about things. If you see a female identifying person who is excitedly talking about her favorite fictional shit that is between two guys, and you decide to shame her for it, and then label her as a Fujoshi in a derogatory way, then you know what? Shame on you. She's not hurting anyone. But you are. Also, did I really need to do a 40-minute video essay with the message being, leave women alone? And also, it's fine if women like seeing guys kiss. Did it really need to ever get to be that serious, guys? Come on. I really hope this trend of shaming people for a noble cause can soon come to an end, because it can be just a hate bandwagon at best, or at worst, stem from some really dark places that are riddled with prejudice and discrimination that I thought we were all against. I hope I defended Fujoshi Nation with honor and valor, because apparently I am one. It's a miracle I did not get set on fire. It is a gosh darn miracle. Hey, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this discussion. And if you did, please make sure to like and subscribe, because every single like means that I will kiss one Fujo on the head in a platonic consenting way. For more of course, you should go check out my Media List video. It's tagged in the description and also, right here in the eye. Pokemon. It's a really good addition, I think, to this conversation about just general things that are present in fandom nowadays. So definitely go check that out if you have not already. Again, my name is E. I do fandom discourse videos like this one, and also some Genshin Impact stuff if you're interested in that. And also, I stream on Twitch Wednesdays, Fridays,
Oh yeah,
and Saturdays
I
at
wanna
3
watch
p.m.
those.
EST. So definitely go hang out with us over on twitch.tv/E-is-social. If you want to get better acquainted, follow my socials on Twitter, my TikTok, and my Instagram. Alright, that is it for me. I have to go to bed. It is 11:30 p.m. Hi! If I don't see you on Twitch, then I will see you in the next one. Okay? Bye! I'm gonna go read Yaoi.
I want to talk about the freaking Yuri manga I read a little while ago. Or not, that I talked about a little while ago. In my previous video before this that I recorded, which was the Zelda Let's Play one. It's like, yeah, it was really good. I liked it. It was focused less on the discovery of both leads being gay, but more so them discovering how they should treat each other. It was a very nice story about responsibility and adulthood and childhood, and how to properly treat your seniors and juniors with respect. Or more specifically, it's the other way around, since the leading lady is the office lady, not so the young lady. But due to both of them being like that, it is technically quite a story that can appeal to both the young people and the old people. In a sense. It was very empowering and responsible when I read it. Just how mature the office lady was. I forgot her name. This is a spoiler. But my favorite moment for her was how she handled I guess the villain in the story in the final chapters, with her offering. Yes, there was a stupid ass love triangle created for external drama. I didn't like that character very much. She definitely felt like she was just there because there needed to be drama in the story. But like the way she was treated as well by the main protag, the office lady, was just such a nice treat, you know. Again, again, she's treating her very responsibly. And all that bull crackery. Mamma mia, this is not sustainable. Maybe I should just grind on the lower floors. It would be cheaper to just buy a Medica. Yeah, the scene where she gives her some potato chips so she can stay hydrated and have some calories as she cries. It was so cute, but it was the only time I actually cared about the villain and felt a little sad that she obviously was not going to win the love triangle. And no, polyamory is not a solution. Frick, I wanna read it again. Maybe I'll read it again later after I finish recording this. I was supposed to explore the 3rd floor, but I decided I fucking hate Mayara. Holy shit, it's a fucking whole ass 3-parter. Okay, wow, she makes a lot of... She's basically a Genshin content creator. I hope it's alright for me to call her a she. You never know with today's political thingy, like how like, you know, Umag is also a trans character here and he's supposed to have he/him pronouns. I mean, honestly, the female hoplites, NGL, they look pretty manly. Is that misogynist? I hate that word.
This video is sponsored by Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co.
I'm gonna watch that video series later.
Game. With any role she attempted to provide being pretty much a complete downgrade to other options. With the release of Dendro, however, it became immediately clear that she was simply a unit released before her time. Her ability to provide consistent electro application, being rewarded for building full EM, and her ability to thus roll, consolidate, healing, and hyper bloom triggering has made her the best 4-star to be added to the game post-launch, in my opinion of course, and her synergy with Dendro making her almost a must-build for your account. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Tokyo Treat delivers the most premium Japanese snacks and candies to your door monthly. From the salty, sour to the sweet, discover limited edition Japanese treats that you won't find anywhere else. It was such a treat for my wife and I to enjoy these snacks together. Nearly everything in it were things that I had never
keep thinking
tried
it's
before,
tabbed to
such as
auto
the
battle.
sour cream potato crackers, which were a delicious and unique savory treat, and things that made my wife nostalgic for when she herself lived in Japan, such as the snowball call Marshmallow, which is filled with a delicious Japanese bean paste filling, very common to snacks from there. This month's box is the Christmas edition, and it's perfect for a loved one's gift. My wife and I are
Supposed to be
getting
lots
two
of
our
Lynxes in the
friends
secret
these very
area.
boxes. Sakura Co. focuses on authentic Japanese sweets, snacks, and teas. The family-owned businesses are handpicked by Sakura Co. themselves. This month's selection is Holidays in Hokkaido and featured an incredible milk mochi, which tasted unique to even any mochi I've ever had and is a new favorite treat of mine. The Hokkaido Adzuki cake was also delicious, filled with a refined red bean paste, which also made my wife very nostalgic for Japan. It was also very special to learn about each snack through the included pamphlet, learning about the process to make each treat and the history behind it. It's also amazing to receive this unique and beautiful handmade crafted artisan indigo Eisen dish. Don't forget to use the code below to get $5 off your first box through my link. You can't go
There they
wrong
are.
getting
Oh,
either
God.
box as a gift for a loved one or for yourself. Thanks again to Tokyo Treats and Sakura Co. for sponsoring this video. Kuki is an off-field electro applicator and healer who does the majority of her team's function just by using her skill once per rotation. She takes her own HP similar to Hu Tao and gets more healing when she's under 50%. This mechanic can make her a bit fragile, especially for a defensive unit, so make sure to be ready to dodge when using her, as she will often be at pretty low HP. Kuki's biggest boon is her passive that converts Elemental Mastery into healing, meaning you can run full EM while still having enough healing to keep your team healthy, allowing you to maximize Hyper Bloom damage while being your defensive unit. Her skill with C2 has permanent uptime, and a pretty good range that doesn't even require your character to proc reactions by using normal attacks or something. Or any attacks for that matter. You could be being knocked around, or just running around with Yao Yao rolling around beside you, or crawling around with Kirara, and her skill keeps going. Her burst doesn't have too much use, but it can be slotted into your rotation when available to proc additional blooms, apply extra electro for Officials A4, or for just a tiny bit of extra damage, or to activate certain weapon passives. All this together makes her one of the ideal triggers for Hyper Bloom in the game, which of course is one of the best teams in the game, and almost definitely the best team at low investment, and often medium investment too. Kuki does have a few teams outside of Hyper Bloom, which we will cover as well, but Hyper Bloom is definitely where her kit shines the most. All in all, she's extremely free to play friendly,
Unhinged strategy.
very powerful, provides great role consolidation, doesn't require high constellations, and all considered, she's arguably the best procer of the most powerful low and mid investment team in the game, so it's easy to see why she's nearly a must build on your account. Let's talk about exactly what teams she's best in, and when she is and isn't the best options on those teams.
I have a very unhinged strategy for leveling
We've
up
already talked so much
Teosra.
about the Hyper Bloom team, so the main core is going to be a Dendro unit, usually Nahida, but any Dendro unit will do. You generally want them to have the most Dendro application possible to give you the best chance of creating the most seeds, so Nahida is of course the best. Baiju, using him on field is generally great, although using him with Kuki is a bit redundant because both of them of course provide healing. You might as well free up this slot for someone else, but if you just want to use Baiju with Kuki, of course you can. The next is a Hydro. This is going to be Yelan or Sing Cho 99.9% of the time. Kokomi can work, but the Hydra application's a lot less, so you don't get nearly
I should probably say
it's not as good. And you can also now use Farina. That changes things a little bit, we'll get to that in a second, but this is basically your main three, and if you don't have Yelan or you're more free to play, it's going to be Sing Cho. The final slot really can be your pick of the litter. You can choose Sing Cho and Yelan to make double Hydro. This team has never failed to clear the Abyss. It's just an unbelievably good team. You can also use Fischl. She's fantastic here. Doesn't interrupt Hyper Blooms, and you get tons of activates for her, so it's great. You can even use something like Sucrose. It's not like the craziest team for Sucrose, but anything that doesn't mess up the rest of the reaction is going to work here, because the rest of the team is so strong. Like, you could put Wanderer here, you can put Yaimiko here, you can put Kaching here, like, you can just do whatever. This core is so strong that it gives you so much flexibility for that last one. Like, Yoimiya has no synergy here. Yeah, Yoimiya has no synergy here. In fact, she has anti-synergy. She should be stealing some Hyper Blooms from here, but I just wanted to take it to the Abyss and just get an idea of how strong or weak this anti-synergy actually is, because even though we have anti-synergy, I think it's pretty funny that if we can actually clear the Abyss with something that doesn't make any sense. So we're using our usual Hyper Bloom rotation. and we're just gonna see how it compares to other Hyper Bloom. Normally, I can rotate this pretty close with a good Hyper Bloom team before it goes into its next phase. So we'll see if this team is able to do that. It looks like we're lacking ER. My Yamon, she's probably using Aqua and doesn't have ER, so that's not so great. It could be that we would be in a better place if we had
good thing I saved.
So let's see where it finishes off. Yeah, I mean, I know this is kind of goofy, right? The team makes no sense. Yoimiya actively steals blooms from the team, but the reality is that the core is just so broken that you can use something that hurts the team and just adds damage in a different way, and the team is still going to perform fine. So I just wanted to show that so that, like, I talk about meta, I talk about what's strong and what's not strong. And it's important that everyone knows that if you know how to play the game, and you know how to build your units well, that you can do things that are not optimal, that are actively anti-synergistic, and still clap the Abyss's cheeks completely. And this team is one of those cheat codes that you can just throw stuff in there and have a lot of fun using anyone on field. Like I've cleared with this team at level 1 from an A before. But you can. This is where you can have fun. Like you can put Hazo in front here. You can do like physical Amber or something goofy like that. Like cryo units are very common in this slot, like Jongyun or Charlotte or a Hyper Fridge, right? This is what's called Hyper Fridge. Hyper Fridge isn't real. Like it's not an optimal team pretty much in any sense of the word, in pretty much any scenario, unless for some reason you need both the cryo element and the Dendro, but Dendro shreds cryo like Hydro Shield anyway, so there's no even reason to have cryo on your team pretty much ever. It does provide some nice freeze and some nice crowd control, and it can give you more blooms, but it's almost never better than just using something else for damage. But like this is where you put in Kaveh. If you want to use Kaveh on field, you'd want to put him in something like this team, and it's gonna do well. You can put Ayato.
Teosra can't do anything.
You can put Razor. This is like the team that says I have a favorite character. They're maybe not well invested enough to clear the Abyss, but I still want.
Alright, fine. I guess we need a shielder of some kind.
Option, then Alhaitham is gonna be that for you. Not only does his vertical investment potential the highest, so good artifacts, 5-star weapon like the Jade Cutter or something. This team scales really, really well, but also has a lot of front-loaded damage with Alhaitham's burst. So although it's in theory very, very close to double Hydro and often performs very similarly, the front load of Alhaitham just makes this
may as well be Mara
team. But there is another variant where you switch out the Hydro for Purina, and when you do that, Cookie's healing is not quite enough to gain all the stacks back, and so that's where you want to go onto your Nahida and give her the prototype Amber weapon, and then you'll have enough healing to proc Farina, and Farina gives added damage to Alhaitham. You want to build Nahida on full damage, as much damage as you can get out of her, so she'll be doing good damage on this team. And overall, I don't know if this is better than using Yelan in the Farina slot. It really probably depends on how well built your Alhaitham is and how well built your Nahida.
How dare you?
This team definitely scales with the vertical investment of your carries and just the damage overall, and as usual, just on EM. You also have the ability to play a very similar team with Tighnari. I've got Baiju here for some interruption resistance, but the Dendro app being reduced is very noticeable. If you want good feeling damage, you do want to use Nahida instead. This is the first time Tighnari has been able to actually use a Hyper Bloom team, so that's really awesome. And it's the same as the Alhaitham one, but it's just sort of more single target restricted. But Tighnari has excellent single target, and Hyper Bloom is single target, so it does make sense, and you're getting a lot. Again, high investment on your Tighnari is what you want for this. But she doesn't have to be used on Hyper Bloom. You can use her on Aggravated. She has some very serious upsides to be using on this team. On this team, you want to generally use the Instructor's Artifact set, I'll show you it later, and a buffing weapon, so either a 5-star buffing weapon or the Sapwood Blade if you're free to play. And she is one of the better defensive options for Alhaitham spread. Zhongli is another option as well, but Kuki can often be the optimal choice for damage, especially if you have something like the Ki for buff. It doesn't have to be Alhaitham, of course. Tighnari is excellent here as well. She can also be used for super conduct, something like a Eula team or a Razor team. I guess not so much Razor, really it's going to be Eula or Fremine. And this team definitely doesn't have the ceiling that Hyper Bloom does, but especially for the overworld, or if you've just got extremely cracked that artifact for the Abyss, then this is a good option as well. What this allows you to do is go for more offensive options for your crowd support. So I'm using Rosaria and Shenhe here. You'll want to see this team really pop off, you'll want your Rosaria to be really well invested for damage. invested. You'll want to see Eula really well invested. Generally, it's going to be an overall downgrade to using some of the better teams, like using Zhongli. Even on this team, Zhongli is often going to be the better choice and the more comfortable choice, but Kuki is definitely an option that at least has some synergy here. This is another version of Aggravate that we didn't try until recently, and I really love this team. I don't love it as much as just using a defensive option in the Nahida slot here, and then using another animal like Fenty or something in the Kuki slot, but it still is a really good team. You once again want to put Kuki on Instructors, give her Sap with Blade, and you want to put Kazuha on Sacrificial Sword so you can use his skill often. The main problem with this team with Nahida is that sometimes she applies too much Dendro, and it's hard to get your
I can also try completing
so you
the
might want to infuse his burst to
little
have that
quest
extra
thing, I
application
suppose.
before you start applying Nahida's skill. I also wanted to make sure I gave a shout out to my favorite funny team, which is called Hopper Bloom. This is a team where you set up your Furina, set up your Kuki, set up your Fischl, and just jump around with Yao Yao. You don't do any normal attack, you don't do any charge attacks, you just hop around and the enemies die. It's the most hilarious and funny thing ever. If you like funny teams like that, by the way, check out my video, Top 10 4-Star Teams for Furina. It was a really good video, but it didn't do all that well, so go check it out if you want to see more creative team videos like that. And finally, although it's less optimal, you can use her in something like a Taser team. The problem is, for most Taser teams, you're gonna want to go with a Xingqiu and Beidou core. And Xingqiu and Beidou is really all the defensive utility you need for an Electro team. So slotting in Kuki instead of Beidou or instead of Fischl just results in losing a lot of damage for not really that much gain. And when you start changing up the team to be more offensive, let's say you want to put Raiden and Kazuha and Yelan in there or something, and then you're like, okay, now I need a healer. It's like, well, you should have just put Bennett in that last slot or something for more buffing and give up on this on the Taser archetype. So generally, Kuki just doesn't seem to fit that well into Taser due to offensive Electro just being better, similarly to Super Conduct, but it's definitely there. Definitely something you can do. And if you are like a creative individual and you've been thinking about using like Super Conduct Kuki and like making use of her normal attack, you're gonna have much better mileage just using her on field in the Hyper Bloom team. Like if you love Kuki, just use her on field in the Hyper Bloom team. Use Xingqiu on the team for damage reduction so that you don't die. And she'll take advantage of her own healing. So if you love Kuki and you want to see her on field, just on field her in the Hyper Bloom team. It's going to be great. Final thing. I know this is super cope, but it is really funny. So hear me out. This is the team where you on field Kuki in a Hyper Bloom team, and you start with Nahida, so you get Nahida's buff and her skill, and you get the EM buff from Nahida, which then you use Kuki on field, so she takes advantage of the EM buff from Nahida, and you're using Candace to infuse Kuki's normal attacks with Hydro, meaning you get more Hydro application, and so this could be a team that you use if you want to use one of the
forgot to activate the
You
thingy.
don't want to just use double Hydro Hyper Bloom. Now you can use Candace and use Kuki on field, taking advantage of the EM buff. Anyway, it's definitely not the greatest team of all time, but definitely one that you can do. For her build guide, the main thing you want to consider is what team you're using. For Hyper Bloom, you definitely need her to be level 90. She gets about a 30% damage increase to the Hyper Blooms going from 80 to 90. It is a massive, massive deal. Outside of Hyper Bloom, if you're just using her as a healer, her personal damage is low enough that leaving her 80 out of 80 even not ascended is fine. But I suspect most of you are going to be doing Hyper Bloom, and for that, 90 is necessary. For talents, the only one you need to worry about is her skill, and you only need to level it up enough as to how much healing you need. Apparently, I like to live on the edge, so I only have mine at level 6. Now that Furina's out, I'm probably going to take this much higher because more healings mean more stacks for Furina's buff, but there's no need to level up her normals or burst at all. For artifacts, this is where it really depends again whether or not you're using Hyper Bloom or a different team. For Hyper Bloom, Flowers of Paradise Lost is her best set. The 4-piece increases Hyper Bloom damage by a substantial amount, but you really lose very little going with Gilded Dreams instead. It's under a 5% damage increase. You kind of get diminishing returns for Elemental Mastery at some point, so the extra Elemental Mastery you get from Gilded Dreams is not quite as good as what you get from Flowers with the bonus, but they're so close that if you already have a Gilded Dreams set, like there's really no need to go for the Flowers of Paradise. Even still, like I would really never recommend someone actually farm the Flowers of Paradise Lost. I did it because I'm one of the 2-piece HP for Nilou, but the Gilded is just so much more efficient because you can get it with Deepwood, and with such a small difference, I think it's closer to 2% or something like that. It also depends on how many Elemental Mastery substats you can get and stuff like that, so it does depend a little, but overall just stick with Gilded unless you're really just trying to min-max. You can also go 2-piece, so 2-piece Gilded, 2-piece Flowers, 2-piece Gilded, 2-piece Wanderer's Troop. It's obviously worse than Gilded Dreams, but you're doing so much damage from Hyper Bloom that it doesn't matter. It's definitely much lower on your priority getting to 90, getting your other characters proper artifacts, like a focus on your other characters first, then you can focus on getting her a full set. 2-piece is going to be totally fine in the meantime. For stats, definitely Elemental Mastery Sands, Elemental Mastery Goblin.
Alright, I'm kinda curious if the XP patch is a
Hyper
thing.
Bloom build. If you're not using her on Hyper Bloom, then you want to go Instructor.
Maybe for
Well,
my
as you
sanity,
saw
I
in
shouldn't
this video, I forgot to take Instructors off, so
grind.
I'm getting lower.
If I'm grinding, I should at
So
least
that's
be able to go
also
to
healing less
normal.
than I should, so that's pretty funny. But Instructors is awesome when you're using an aggravated team or a sprint team with I'll hype them, because boosting your party's Elemental Mastery by 120 is really, really huge. It's a very easy set for her to proc, and it's just generally very, very useful for your team. And you'll usually just want to go HP, HP, HP to maximize her healing, or HP, HP healing points. So but I'm totally fine. For weapons, Hyper Bloom, again, you want to go with an EM weapon.
Alright, no, it's not active.
Jagiri, but the Iron
Well,
Sword
I
is also
want it
a great
active.
choice. Black Iron Sword is a super underrated option that you can use to get it for free in Leeway. The drip is insane with Black Iron Sword, so if you don't want to craft one of your sword billets, then Dark Iron Sword is like an incredible choice, and if you weren't around for that event, it's not that much lower of a substat, and the Elemental Mastery difference is pretty much negligible.
Oh,
so
Dark
if you want to
Iron
save your
Sword.
Save your billets, then Dark Iron Sword's an amazing choice. If you have access to 5-star sword, Freedom Sworn is really, really good. Gives the largest Elemental Mastery substat in the game and has a nice buffing effect, so Freedom Sworn is an incredible choice if you have it. Key of Cotton Pursuit, usually going to be an overall better choice on a lot of teams, maybe not usually, but it's a better choice on a lot of teams because of the buffing effect. It just depends on what team you're running. Although it doesn't have an Elemental Mastery substat, it offers her own Elemental Mastery as well, and it gives you boosted healing, which increase stats for Karina, so and overall just comfort. So Key of Cotton Pursuit, the choice you want to go for overall if